I recently returned from a month-long trip to Japan and South Korea. I spent a week in Seoul, 3 days at the beginning of the trip and 4 days at the end. This part 2 video will cover the final 4 days of my trip to Seoul. Look for a link to part 1 in the description below. My journey is presented as a travel diary, so you can learn from my mistakes and my successes. And I'll apologize in advance for my poor Korean pronunciation. So here we go with part 2. Day 4. My 4th day in Seoul was after I returned from trips to Busan, Gwangju, and Jeju Island. The night before, I had booked tickets on Yeouido.com to a theater show in Seoul at 5 p.m. By the time I checked in at the hotel, I had just enough time to grab something to eat and take a bus to the show. The production was called The Painters and was billed as a flamboyant live art performance that intricately combines both colorful drawings and cutting-edge media. I had no expectations for the show. My goal was just to take in an event from Seoul's cultural art scene. It turned out to be a fun, visually exciting show and unlike anything I'd seen before. The artists integrated technology with painting, and the end result was surprising and exhilarating. I wasn't allowed to take pictures during the show, but they allowed pictures during the conclusion. I only paid about $5 for the delightful show, so check it out if you are going to Seoul. I don't think you will be disappointed. Although Google Maps gave me bus directions to the theater, it would only give me walking directions on the way back. It wasn't too far, so I walked. For the next 2 days, I used the Naver Map App and had no problems with navigation. Day 5. Although I had already spent a few days in Seoul, this was my first full day in which I didn't have anything pre-booked. I used that freedom to map out a plan to tour a specific region with several sites. The Naver Map App worked very well. Although the subway was quicker, I decided to take the bus to see the sights along the way. My first destination was the Gangnam District, where I walked K-Star Road. It is a street lined with high-end stores, as well as these bear-like sculptures dedicated to various K-pop groups. It was fun to look at all the idol groups. There were some I had heard of, such as BTS, but others I had not. Like the Hollywood Walk of Fame, I assumed that the groups had to have some amount of success to be anointed with a bear. Next, I took off on foot in the direction of the CoEx Mall. I debated on taking the bus, which probably would have been the smarter choice. However, I walked in the hot sun and took in a few sights along the way, including this cute little narrow park along the sidewalk. Once at CoEx Mall, the first thing I ran into was the Gangnam Style Statue. If you aren't familiar with the Gangnam Style music video by the singer Psy, I have left a link to the video in the description. This statue is an homage to that explosively popular video. I was happy to enter the mall where it was air-conditioned. It is a huge mall that includes an aquarium and a plethora of stores. However, my goal was to see the library. I love libraries, and this one looked amazing in pictures. I asked directions and followed several hallways and wasn't disappointed when I arrived. I'll let the video speak for itself. It was just masses and masses of books on shelves up to the ceiling. Many locals were hanging out there, so I thought I would join them. There was a cute little smoothie place next to the library, so I ordered one and cooled off overlooking the stacks. So cool. My next destination on my agenda was the Bongeunsa Temple. After touring for over 3 weeks and visiting at least 20 temples, I'm not sure I would have gone to another one if it wasn't right across the street from the mall. It looks somewhat uninteresting from the front, but once you walked into it, it became more and more impressive. It is a whole compound with various buildings, sculptures, Buddhas, and places to worship. It had some fun wooden sculptures in the front, these intricately carved sentries in the entryway, and a large, tall Buddha towards the back of the property, as well as many other Buddhas in various settings around the grounds. I was fortunate when visiting both Japan and South Korea that all the temples were decorated for Buddha's birthday with these fabulous lanterns. It created quite a visual attraction. I guess the birthday celebration had just ended because the workers were beginning to take them down. The temple was certainly worth the visit. For senior travelers, just know that to see the entire grounds, there are stairs and elevation changes required. It was early afternoon when I finished the temple. My original plan was to go to Itaewon in the evening, but I decided to go right then so I wouldn't have to come back to this region again. Itaewon is known for its lively evenings, so it was interesting to walk the streets when it was very quiet. Even though the streets were empty, I could just imagine it teeming with people in the evenings, filling up all the bars and cafes lining the streets. My impression of Itaewon? Charming and a little rough around the edges, which is probably why it is so appealing. I had heard there was an antique alley in Itaewon, and I searched with my map app but never located it, so I decided to head back to the hotel to rest. I got on the bus and had to transfer 3 times. I crossed the Han River, got off, and hopped on the next bus, but I messed up and got on it going the wrong direction. I immediately realized my mistake since I was now crossing back over the Han River. I had to laugh. As a solo traveler, I try not to get stressed when making a mistake. I usually end up seeing something new. My only concern was that my phone was dying and my power bank was used up, but I managed to get on the correct bus that took me back to the hotel. I rested for a short time and then walked to the Myeongdong Night Market. I was looking for Music Korea, but the GPS wasn't clear. The street was exciting though, with hundreds of shops and some fun entertainment on the streets. I did more looking than buying, but got a kick out of all the cute items with a capital C. There were also many food carts. In the spirit of experiencing Korea, I tried a couple items and can't say I'll repeat it. After a couple hours, I headed back to the hotel. Day 6. For this day, I had again mapped out a region to explore. However, there was a place near my hotel that I thought I would check out first. It was called HiKR Ground and was advertised as a tourist information cultural center and the public face of the Korea Tourism Organization. It was said to have a 4-story interactive center with a K-pop museum and multilingual information desks. I have no idea what I stepped into, but it wasn't that. It was full of 20-year-olds and seemed to be a place for gamers. I was the only one over 30 there. I went to every level thinking that maybe the different levels held different exhibits, but it all seemed to be highlighting a gamer named Faker, who was billed as the greatest of all time. I know nothing about gaming, so it was an interesting experience to step into this other world for a moment. A bewildering but new experience for me. If you can shed more light on it, please share in the comments section. I left there and walked through Seoul Plaza. They had a children's book sale going on, and in one corner was a peaceful protest, with police lined up in case there were problems. I then headed back to the Myeongdong Night Market. I wanted to find a particular store where I had seen a gift the night before. I finally found it after walking all over the market several times. I also stumbled upon Music Korea, which I had looked for the previous night. I was expecting a music artist museum, but it was a music store full of K-pop merchandise. This seemed to be the store for K-pop fans, with its 2 stories and numerous bins and shelves of music and merchandise. I then went back to the hotel to rest with the intention to go on a Sunset Han River Cruise. I had tried several times to book a reservation online, but ran into problems with my American credit card. I had even checked with my front desk and they couldn't help me either. So when I discovered that all the cruises were sold out except the daytime cruises, I just headed directly to the site. I took the subway for the first time and managed easily. I arrived on Yeouido-dong Island fairly early, but by the time I found the ticket office, it was 20 minutes before the cruise took off. The cruise was an Elan Han River Cruise on a ferry boat. It was nice to see the city from the river. I had a slight problem with them selling dried anchovies to the patrons to feed the birds. I was looking forward to a quiet cruise, but the birds kept swooping in to grab their spoils. I was happy when they finally used up the fish. There were some pretty sights along the way. I especially like going under the bridges and seeing the skyline of the city. I do think this cruise would be spectacular at night when everything is lit up. Towards the end of the cruise, I moved to the lower deck and discovered a guitarist playing music. It was a nice touch. After that, I took the bus to my hotel and got off early to find some dinner. Day 7 in Seoul and final day of my 31-day trip to Japan and South Korea. I took a bus to the Hyehwamun Gate. My goal was to walk along the Nangshan City Wall, which from pictures looked like it had great views. I had heard from a blogger that if I took a bus to this area of the wall, I wouldn't have to climb as many stairs. This was bad information. I walked up the entrance at the gate, climbed some steep steps, and then the walkway abruptly ended. I looked around for the pathway and saw nothing but residential homes. I walked across the street to a museum and had a long Google Translator conversation with a very nice man and realized it was a dead end and was just bad info. So I decided to go to the Namsan Beekman Square. I had to transfer buses at a 5-lane bus stop, and my Naver app wasn't clear which side of the street to catch the bus. I crossed the street and finally decided to give up and walk away from the area and catch a bus later. Instead, I saw the Seoul Sky Garden right across the street. It is an elevated, linear park in Seoul, built atop a former highway overpass. As I looked down on the bus lanes, I could see why I was confused, because you needed to get on a bus going the opposite direction and then it would turn around. By this time, my phone and power bank were down on their batteries, so I decided to take a bus back to my hotel, rest a bit, charge my phone, and then head out again. My auxiliary power bank was definitely failing, and I vowed to get a new one when I got back home. After resting, I took a subway to Yeouido-dong, which had some charming restaurants and cafes. However, the best part was this wonderful green belt that ran through it. I took my time exploring this beautiful area before heading to Hongdae Street, which was a short distance from there. Hongdae Street is lined with shops, cafes, bars, and food stalls. It is a lively place, bustling with locals and tourists. Since I was so hot, I found an ice cream shop and then plopped myself on a bench in front of H&M, which is supposed to be the best place for busking. I arrived at 3 and sat for over 2 hours, just people watching. I was about to leave when some youth showed up with a cart that looked like it contained speakers, so I thought something was about to happen. They started performing about an hour later. It was a group of around 10 student dancers. They were certainly amateurs, looking a little self-conscious, but they were having fun and their friends in the audience were all cheering for them. It was enjoyable to experience the youthful jubilance. Another group of 3 had started performing a short distance away. They were more confident dancers but performed as soloists, which for me was less exciting. I have to say I enjoyed this evening the most out of my stay in Korea. It was just fun to have a closer connection with the locals and see them sharing their love of music and dance. Afterwards, I walked around Hongdae Street to see if there were other performers. When I couldn't find any, I took the subway back to the hotel. Since it was my last night in Seoul, I took one last stroll to the Cheongyecheon. It was full of people strolling on a Friday night. It was nice to get this final glimpse of the city. I truly enjoyed my travels in Seoul. It is an exciting and lively city with so much to see and do. Please see my other South Korean videos, including Gwangju, Busan, and Jeju Island, as well as my trip to the DMZ. I have left links to all the videos in the description. As always, if you have questions, feel free to ask in the comments section and/or join the new Facebook travel forum. I have left a link to it as well. And if you'd like to follow my senior and solo travel journeys, please like and subscribe. Cheers!